There are only 3 ways to get rich. Not 10, not 27, not some secret list your favorite guru is hiding behind a paywall. 3. And once you understand them, you'll realize the reason most people never build real wealth has nothing to do with intelligence or opportunity. It has everything to do with which path they chose and whether they actually understood the rules of that path before they started walking it. Today we're breaking all 3 down: what makes each one work, what makes each one brutal, and why most people crash out before they ever see the finish line. Stay with me because the third path is the one almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most relevant one for where you are right now. Let's start with the first and most powerful path. You build something. You create a system that produces value and you hold on to your ownership stake while that system grows. This is how the majority of self-made billionaires got where they are. Not through salary, not through saving coupons, but through founding and owning companies that scaled. Technology businesses, logistics operations, retail empires, manufacturing plants, different industries but identical mechanics. They built it, they owned it, and the value multiplied. Here's why building works so differently from earning. When you earn a salary, your income grows in a straight line. You get a raise. Maybe you double your pay over a decade, but it's still linear. You are trading time for money. But when you own a company and that company grows, the value doesn't grow in a straight line. It reprices. A business doing $1 million a year that scales to 20 million doesn't just get 10 times bigger in terms of what it's worth. Investors value it differently at different stages. The multiple expands. Wealth appears almost out of thin air, but it's not magic. It's the math of ownership meeting the math of scale. The roadmap for building wealth this way is actually straightforward on paper. Find an inefficiency or unmet need in the market. Build a repeatable solution. Standardize how you deliver it. Scale your distribution. And here's the step most founders blow: keep your ownership intact as you grow. That last step is where fortunes are lost before they're ever made. Founders give away too much equity too early. They build something that still needs them personally to function, meaning they built a job, not a company. They never crack distribution at scale. Here's the uncomfortable truth about building. It's not about passion. Passion is a nice story for an interview, but it won't save a bad business model. What actually matters is structural leverage. Can your system produce predictable revenue without you in the room? Can it scale beyond your personal hours? Do you own enough of it for the scale to make you wealthy? 2% of something modest doesn't change your life. 60% of something growing fast absolutely does. Market timing matters more than most founders want to admit. A lot of billionaires weren't necessarily smarter than their peers. They entered expanding markets at the right moment. The internet in the early 2000s. Mobile platforms in the 2010s. Cloud infrastructure. AI-driven industries right now in 2026. When a market expands rapidly, even imperfect businesses get carried upward. Timing amplifies effort. Build in a shrinking market and you're paddling upstream. Build in an expanding one and the current does half the work. The emotional cost is real though. There's no stable paycheck. Your identity gets wrapped up in something that might collapse. Feedback from the market is often brutal and relentless. Most people prefer the emotional safety of employment, and that's a completely rational choice. But that safety comes at a price. The price is that you never capture the asymmetric upside. You trade volatility for security, and in doing so, you trade the possibility of life-changing wealth for a comfortable ceiling. Now let's talk about the second path. You don't build the machine. You buy it. Or more accurately, you buy pieces of machines that already exist and you let time and compounding do the heavy lifting. This is the investor path, and it runs on one fundamental truth. Productive assets compound. If you own shares in a profitable company, that company generates earnings whether you're awake or asleep, whether you're watching it or not. If you own rental properties, tenants pay rent while you're on vacation. Ownership decouples wealth creation from personal effort, and that decoupling is everything. The math here is non-negotiable. When you invest money into an asset that grows at 8% annually, you're not just earning on your original capital each year, you're earning on everything that's already accumulated. Early years feel almost pointless. Later years feel explosive. This is why the biggest variable in the investor path isn't brilliance or market timing. It's time horizon. 20 or 30 years of consistent, Disciplined investing in productive assets does what decades of intense speculation almost never does. What qualifies as a productive asset? Businesses that generate profits. Real estate with rental income. Private equity stakes. Index funds that capture aggregate corporate earnings. What doesn't qualify? Assets that produce nothing and depend entirely on someone else buying them from you at a higher price later. If it doesn't generate value independently, it doesn't compound sustainably. It speculates. The mistake most people make on this path is thinking they need to be brilliant stock pickers. They don't. The real edge is almost embarrassingly simple. Stay invested consistently. Reinvest your returns. Avoid catastrophic losses. Scale your contributions as your income grows. Don't interrupt the process when markets get scary. Emotion is the enemy of compounding. Every time you panic sell a position, you reset the clock. Systems and discipline beat intelligence every single time on this path. And now the third path, the one that bridges the first two and gets almost no attention in wealth conversations. You enter an existing high-value system, position yourself where the leverage concentrates, earn outsized income, and then convert that income aggressively into ownership. Not everyone has capital to invest. Not everyone is wired to survive the chaos of building from zero. But almost anyone can enter a system that already works and use it as a launching pad. The key is understanding which systems amplify your effort and which ones cap it. High-earning professionals cluster in leverage-heavy industries. Finance, technology, law, enterprise sales, corporate executive leadership. These fields aren't just better paying because companies are generous. They're better paying because the scale of impact is larger. A software engineer whose work reaches millions of users generates more economic value than one writing code nobody scales. Compensation follows impact at scale. This path moves through 5 phases. First, you acquire a scarce skill that drives revenue, reduces cost materially, or manages capital at scale. Scarcity creates pricing power. Then you select systems that multiply value rather than cap it. A powerful skill in a weak industry will still hit a ceiling. That same skill inside a scaling industry keeps expanding. Third, you move closer to capital. Closer to deals, equity grants, profit pools, and decision-making. This is where most talented people stall. They remain operators without ever negotiating upside. High earners who actually become wealthy negotiate equity compensation, carried interest, performance bonuses tied to enterprise value. That negotiation is the inflection point. Fourth, you convert aggressively. Every bonus, every vested stock grant, every windfall goes straight into productive assets. Not after lifestyle inflation settles. Not after the house upgrade. Immediately. Someone earning $400,000 a year and living on $120,000 can deploy nearly $300,000 annually into compounding assets. That changes the slope of your financial trajectory completely. And fifth, eventually your asset base generates enough return that your labor becomes optional. You cross from the earned income world into the ownership world. You've used the system to buy your way out of the system. All 3 paths lead to the same destination, but through completely different terrain. Building is the most powerful and the most brutal. Buying requires capital and patience, the discipline to stay boring when markets get exciting. Joining requires skill, system awareness, and the restraint to convert income rather than spend it. What they all share is one non-negotiable principle. Wealth flows to ownership. If you don't own something productive, your effort enriches whoever does. The path you choose matters far less than whether you actually start. Stay consistent, and refuse to abandon the process when it gets uncomfortable. The math works. The question is whether you will.